So I'd like to introduce Jack Gibson, who is one of the writers of the movie. And you were just saying it's been a long process for you. Tell us a little bit how and when you first got involved with the project and your interaction with John Callahan.
We started in November of 1996. I was living in Portland, Oregon. I was going to the Northwest Film Center. It was a small 16 millimeter film school there, studying film, and was getting to make a film in Tygh Valley, Oregon with Michael Parker, who was a star of, he was in My Own Private Idaho, and I had met Michael on the street and said, I'm going to make a film, do you want to be in it? And he said yes. And then it was on November 10th, 1994, there was a screening at the school, and it was Jodorowsky's El Topo and short films of Gus Van Zandt. So I met Gus on November 10th, 94, and made the 16 millimeter film. He kind of helped me with some equipment and stuff. I got to use the Malinoche camera and a few other cameras, and we were starting, he knew that I was writing a lot of screenplays with my friend Andrew Eatman, who was a co-writer on this, and he said, well, let's form an office and let's see what happens. So somewhere in beginning of 96, above a little bakery, we had a little office, and the three of us just kind of sat in there and pitched ideas, and Gus was finding books, and we would just kind of write. Gus said it last night that Andy said, oh, we can write a draft in 24 hours, and Gus was like, what? But we could write drafts those days in about 3 days. We could crank 90 pages out. We would just sit in there for 3 days. So 1996 we started, turned a first draft in January 97. We would meet with John Callahan at the Grand Central Bowling Alley in Portland, Oregon. I can close my eyes now and see us hanging out in Soggy, Oregon, talking to John about his life and about the movie and how he'd written his biography, I think, in '89. So this was already, it'd been a few years. He was like, and Robin was wanting to do it, and they were close. And me being a 23-year-old film student, of course, I was like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Let's see what we can do. So we flew to Robin's house. He wasn't there that day, but I still can see his shrubs, or it looked like Jurassic Park, like dinosaurs, Edward Scissorhands cut out of shrubs, and like this amazing estate. And we worked on a draft for a few years, I think 2 different drafts, and the movie, it didn't happen, it didn't go. And then Gus and Patty Sullivan wrote a completely another draft a few years later. It didn't go. 12 years it sat kind of on a shelf somewhere, and it didn't go. And finally, Gus brought it back around in 2014, and by that time, a lot had happened. Yeah, at the beginning of the process, I was a young writer, and I was abusing alcohol pretty bad. So this August will be August 23rd. '08 was my last drink, so this will be 10 years this August. So it's like I look at this film completely differently now. Even though I was a part of it, I feel very separate from it, because I know just kind of getting things going, but it just, as films do, they take on lives of their own. And the way Gus makes films, and with these great actors and all those group scenes or stuff, he's just letting this magic kind of happen, and those scenes get to me, and I feel like I'm just the film. It's been a very healing process to wait 20 years and then see it, and I need it now more than ever in life. If I'd have been 23, and I think the movie would have been made then, I think my friend Andrew and I were in very dark situations, and I think our lives would have ended up very differently. If it would have been made when I would have been 23 and we'd have been abusing drugs and alcohol, I think one or both of us probably wouldn't have been around. I mean, I think that way. So I'm glad that it took that long. The day that it was film was finished, we filmed last April, March and April, and then in November, I think the cut was done, and we could see the credits, and I saw my name back on as a writer. It had been so long. That night, or it could have been in the morning, and during that sleep, it was November 9th of 2017. John came to me in a dream, and he was beaming ear to ear, and he was like, "Dude, the movie finally got made." And I was like, "I know, did you call your brother Tom and Kip?" And he was like, "Yes, I did." And he grabbed my hand, and I woke up, and I was like, I texted Tom, and was like, "Your brother just shot in my dream very quickly, very precise what he was trying to tell me, that he was, you know, if you believe in that type of stuff, that he was excited that the movie got made." It's been a deep, deep healing process for the family, all his brothers and sisters, all their kids, that were like, when we first started in 96, 97, they were like 5 years old, and they always used to hear like, "There's gonna be a movie about Uncle John, there's gonna be a movie about Uncle John." They just keep growing, "There's gonna be a movie," and then they're like 35 at the party going, "There's a movie about Uncle John." And I was like, so that has been absolutely the best part, is during the filming, meeting the family, and then since wrap, staying really close in touch with them, and talking to them once a month, and going to the screenings, and having all them come to Sundance, and then screening in Portland last month with like 50 of John's Dallas, Oregon high school classmates all came from the down there, like, "You called us Gomers," or whatever, you know. So that was kind of funny, but that's why we love Oregon. No, we are. I grew up in Texas. We're Gomers there too. But they were all there. 35, 40 members of John's family in the neighborhood that he lived in for all those years, and had drawn the theater that he would go see movies at, 15 blocks from our original writing office. It was all kind of coming together in that Portland screening, and it was a trip.
So, but going back in time, you know, to when this started, tell us about your interactions with John Callahan at that point, and how did he feel about the idea of a film being done? He didn't get to see it, but, you know, was he supportive?
Oh, over the moon, yeah. I think we would hang out at the bowling alley for some reason. That was our meeting spot, and but he could visualize it. He was excited that it was going to be Robin, and anyone who knows Robin or got to meet Robin, he was just so amazing. I worked on the movie Toys by Barry Levinson.
Oh, yeah.
When I first moved here in '92, I was doing a lot of extra work, and I was a happy worker in the factory, and Robin would hang out with all of us, and he's like, "I want to eat your aunt's green bean casserole one Thanksgiving." He was that personal, you know. So of course I know those meetings with John and Robin, they would hang out. I think they hung out in Portland a few times. And then Gus really went deep, kind of later in the second round, would go and have long recorded meetings with John, and would videotape those meetings with, I think, 12 hours of interviews that I know Joaquin had all those tapes and stuff. But from the days that I was on set and the days that the Callahan family were on set, they were completely moved and blown away by Joaquin on set. It was pretty emotional to see.
I was going to say, how do you think it's different with Joaquin Phoenix in the part versus Robin Williams if he had played it? I could see him doing it as well, but what do you think about the interpretation that Joaquin Phoenix came up with?
To me, that's been one of the joys of my life, is to watch Joaquin work. I just think, their whole family works from a place of a deep expression and heart, and have always been that way. So to be able just to watch him, not try to just, he wasn't trying to copy the tone, maybe the voice, but his body movements and everything was according to the family and everybody there, and to me too, watching was spot on and very, very moving for the family to watch. He just works from such a place of deep expression. It was once in a lifetime for me to watch him work. I think it's amazing. With Robin, it would have been a completely different film, but the original version, I don't think had the and maybe it would have gotten to that point, but this has how do I put it? The original one was very, it was just harder. This one has, I think, with the passing of time and the loss of John and with Robin, it just infuses that everybody, you want to do great work, you want to honor those people that have laid the groundwork to get you there. And there's a sensitivity to the film now that I think is brought on by the time, and that's it's, priceless kind of thing. Sometimes it needs that marination just to grow and to be what it is. But yeah, I think it's a much more sensitive film now. I think it gets, and John was someone who kept growing and growing and growing as an artist. One of my favorite lines in the movie, which seems like a throwaway line, is "It's groovy day in the beach, huh? I'm a songwriter," and you think he's just kind of shooting the crap and drinking and trying to say that. But later in his life, after his drawing, and I think in 2000, he really started playing ukulele a lot. And that last song you hear in the movie is a John Callahan song. He recorded an album of 14 songs. They're all absolutely beautiful. He was a songwriter. It just took him a long time to get to that point.
So how much of what we see in the movie, was true to his life, and how much is invented or embellished, would you say?
I don't know. I mean, I think they talked about John being a writer and writing a biography. Even in his book, maybe he would spice it the way Gus said, he would spice some stuff up or something like that. But I don't really know. You can only go by feel, and that's the way I view it. Does it feel like John? Do I get that from the screen? So as long as I think that's how I view it, as if it's a successful story about a real person. Does it make you feel that person? Does it make you miss that person? Does it make you dream about that person? To me, I think that they nailed it. I'd have to ask more and more of the friends and family that spent like my friend Joy, who's in the special thanks. I think they were together for 5 years later on in his life, and it knocked her socks. It knocks her socks off. It makes her, and all the nieces and nephews, they rode on the back of John's chair like that all the time. So something you would think, oh, that's just for the movie or whatever, that actually it strikes a deep emotional chord with this family, because it connects them with their uncle, who they miss very dearly.
The film, and there are other films these days that are told in this kind of non-linear style, that a lot of jumping around in time. Was that always the way that you would imagine it, or did it evolve kind of in a later draft in that way?
I think in the beginning the last day that he walked was always a strong kind of narrative story that would kind of pull you through this journey. But I think late in Gus's new draft, experimented more with the narrative and stuff. I think they asked him yesterday if it was later in editing more, and he said more. It's there in the 2016 draft that he devised it like that. But of course, as you're filming, he loves it. He's editing that too. So their work. This movie has such a dream crew of a lot of people that Gus's work through 20 years in each department, so that they're super comfortable with the collaborative process and just kind of, I don't know, the rhythm and stuff like that. So I think definitely probably experimented somewhat in the editing, but it's definitely there. And it's pretty. I mean, at first it goes for it. You know, it's like you're switching 3 or 4 times in the first 5 minutes.
Right.
And like to some people, you have to catch the ride. But I think it's a brilliant way to slowly peel back the layers of the story instead of going from A to B to C. You know?
And I suppose it's expressive of somebody whose life was so disrupted. You know, what he went through, and certainly he became different people in the course of his life, and I guess that is kind of reflected in the structure of the film.
Especially when you're a lot of repressed pain and memories of all this stuff, and then adding layers and layers of alcohol is very. Once he's erasing that, I think that it's reopening different things, and it's such a wild flip to see those characters at the end, just of Donnie and John, where they're at the beginning of when they're meeting and where they're at the end. Their physicality, what they're speaking about, they're almost completely switching sides. It's very powerful stuff. I think everyone in the movie is amazing performances. I think they all. I mean, Jonah, and it's just amazing. I cry every time listening to him.
Are there some questions? Yeah, right. Andre, before you go far, let's.
Did he ever find his real mother?
I think I know that. I mean, she passed on, I believe. I think it's pretty accurate to what it was. I think he knew the name, but I think she had passed on by that time.
Yeah.
Could you tell us something more about the latter part of his life? Did he have a partner? Did he make money from his drawings? And how did he die?
How did John? How did he? Well, my good friend Joy Campbell, they were really close, and I know they were romantic. They were together for, I think, around 5 years. When we first started writing the movie in '96, I was really close to Joy Campbell's daughter, whose name was Judy. We were really close. We were super best friends when I was working on the script. So but 20 years later, after the movie had been on pause, Joy and John started dating, and they were together all the time. Would go to parks, would be around in Southeast Portland. I don't know to what extent their relationship was. I know they were very, 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 very deep close. Now, if you're asking me if he made a lot of money, I don't think John had a lot of money, even through this whole process. I think, because the book was written in '89. I think that the option was in '89, and by the time already we're going in '97, '98, '99, it was already 10 years, and I think that that money for any artist can be hard, and then especially going through and living in Portland in a situation, it is definitely hard for money. So I know he had love in his life. I don't think he had a lot of cash money, but I know that he had a lot of love in the city in Portland, and he was a happy guy. He was talkative. He would be around the Northwest neighborhood, chatting it up, and
it seemed like people in the city all knew who he was.
Oh, there's now in Portland. If you're anyone in Portland, go to the John Callahan Memorial Garden. They finally got money together and raised money and opened next to the hospital there, where I think he did some recovery. There's a big garden where people can rest, and there's like 20 of his drawings encased in like a nice area. And you know, a lot of people that have no homes, no place to go, they can rest there at the Callahan Memorial Garden. It's a safe space. I've seen people draw there. His family goes there. They had an opening ceremony. It's kind of brought a lot of his old friends, like I was saying, back together, and that's really unique and amazing to see. But yeah, life in the arts. There's not a lot of money,
Right.
So this was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I got paid 20 years ago. This is not about money. It's about the joy. My publishing check was 4%, was $412. So it doesn't in the end, but it's opened so many doors and actually closed a lot of doors, which are sometimes more important when things kind of fall apart. The movie doesn't get made. You drown your sorrows in booze. That continues for 10 years. Things don't, you're looking for, a way to be creative, and all of a sudden you're drunk for a lot of years. And to finally have the movie be made, and for Andrew and myself to be in different headspaces and positions, that it's closed a lot of doors. So they didn't have to pay me at all $412. That was fine. It just closed a huge chapter that is kind of haunting both Andy and I, and any artist that struggles for things to get made, that then new things start happening and they're out of your control. You just have to go with the flow.
And John, what did he die of?
2010. I just think major health complications throughout the year.
I mean, just partly because of his because of the accident.
Just his body breaking down and stuff. Yeah, he wasn't. It wasn't alcohol related or anything. That was just his body breaking down of the years of wear and tear that it takes to survive.
No. Right down here.
Well, I wasn't clear, did the family always stay involved, or was it after he became sober? Because you talk about them being very involved, but you don't feel that in the film at all.
There was definitely some healing that needed to be done, and that's a great part of the film. I think there were times. That was one of the first things older brother Kip said to me. He was like, John and I weren't always close, and I said, I understand. That's family. They did go through some hardships, but later later on, they were definitely more and more closer, and it was only to do with, as individuals and family members, we get older, we need to put things behind us, we reconcile, and make up with friends and family that our past might have separated. And I see nothing but love from the family now, from multiple generations. Like I said, the niece and nephews, to all his brothers and sisters now. It's brought the family closer together, which is amazing to see. That art it does heal, and some of the amazing dialogue in that is like John says, "Are they forgiving me, or am I forgiving him?" And he gets it twisted, and Jonah's pushing him. What did you really mean, or what are you trying to say? And I think that I use that metaphorically as like, was the film for John, or was the film for his family? And I see it both ways.
Similarly, the interesting scene where he goes to see a Jack Black, and he apologizes to him, even though Jack Black was driving the car and really was responsible for the accident. That was a very touching scene in a way, because obviously he felt he hadn't been able to see him and extend his apologies, the Jack Black character, but that was unexpected, just in that scene, and really makes you think about who's responsible in situations like that.
Usually both people have
Yeah,
a hand in
right,
it, and it's
right.
and that's sometimes that's why forgiveness and all that stuff is sometimes hard. You have to be open to both sides. It's a deep trip.
Any other questions here? Let me ask you, what's sort of next on your schedule? Where do you go from here?
Andrew, who we co-wrote this together with Gus, we've been writing for 25 years. We just finished something that we'd started a long time ago too. Is another chapter of closing kind of unfinished work. It's a great country western music movie that we wrote the songs. But on a deep trip, this premiered in January at Sundance, and I was already very moved and blown away to be there. It was my first time at Sundance. Waited 20 years to see the movie. I cried pretty much the whole time. Was in a daze on the Q&A. Wasn't sure if Gus asked me to speak or not. It was just kind of like a day. It was my point was that was 2 days of incredible moving experience. I was supposed to fly home at 9 p.m. that night, but the DP and all my friends were flying home at 9 a.m. I was like, there's no way I want to end Sundance sitting in an airport for 12 hours coming down that way. I want to get on the early flight. But like I said, I had $52 to my name, so I called my dad and say, hey, I'm going to use your credit card and spend $75 to get on this early flight home. And he says, it's not worth it. And I go, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I fly home. I get home. I remember, my friend Brother Will is playing the Hi, How Are You benefit, which is a mental health benefit in Austin. So I go, I'll go there. So I go there. I meet him there. I bring his guitar, and I realize, it's because it's Daniel Johnston's birthday. He's a legendary singer-songwriter from Austin, Texas. I watched my friend sing with Daniel Johnston. I asked Daniel Johnston's producer, why didn't the Daniel movie ever get made? This is the story that we need to tell. And he's like, well, it's almost happened for 10 years, it's fallen apart. So I said, well, this is what I would do. And he said, you're on the right track. Come over Friday. And I said, this is what I would do. We talked for 3 hours. He said, you're really on the right track. You need to call Daniel's brother. So for 3 months, Dick and we talked for 3 months. And then he said, why don't you come to Waller and hang with Daniel Johnston, who's been a night on mine forever. Of course I'll drive to Waller and play music, write songs with Daniel Johnston, go through 400 spiral notebooks that he's kept since 1983, listen to 700 audio tapes, 700 hours of audio tape that he recorded his whole life. Yes, I'll help you write his story to TV. It was the best $75 you can ever pay for when I got off that ticket. That was just events that just rolled by one decision. Next thing you know, I was writing songs with Daniel Johnston, and if I'd have flown home at 9 p.m. and got home at 1 a.m., I wouldn't have been at the concert. I wouldn't have seen him sing. I wouldn't have met Dick Johnson. I wouldn't have been there with Dan. So you just never really know. So that I'm just kind of following where the path's leading, and hopefully with the Johnsons and myself and a lot of other people being involved, we'll create something really great.
Well,
that's
good luck
not
all
drinking.
that. And thank you very much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you very
Good to talk to you.
I just want to, because I wanted to do it last time, this is probably my last Q&A. John Callahan is, for this movie, that John Callahan is a great singer-songwriter, and I just wanted
He wants to take a picture.
I just wanted to sing a few lines from his song. This is John Callahan, and it says, broken veins and broken needles, I'm too tired to make a fist. Charlie Manson sings the Beatles, I should have known it would end like this. Stick it deep and light my candle, help yourself to my last meal. I've had all that I can handle. Touch me someplace that I can feel. Thanks, John Callahan. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Sorry to step in front of you.
Oh, it's okay.
The whole economy that's changed.
It was being involved with this because he's drunk the whole time. He was right. But oh wow, 20 of us, something like that. I bet there's only a few there. So sober or alive. The odds are against all. Wow. And the funny, the weird piece is the step the answer for me and oh yeah, always. I think stay sober, but